Everyone, you should have your workbook folder, highlighter, pen, pencil. If you don't have those, pause this video and come back as soon as you're ready. All right, welcome back. So we are continuing our story, which we started last week, which is titled The Common Bond. If you want to open to 237, we'll refresh our memory and then move along. Just looking at this and some of the things that we have highlighted, you might recall that this story is on students coming from a different country who have immigrated to the United States. They're considered EL learners, and they are attending the International High School in New York and just kind of becoming assimilated into the culture. It's important for them to keep their own culture and to also be a part of America and learn some of the new traditions here. So go ahead and turn to page 238 now. And if we noticed the beginning of, when we started reading, we noticed that the text was divided into parts. So this is titled A Global Perspective. So global doesn't mean that you're just stuck in your own world. We are all connected in many different ways, and how we learn can be similar and it can also be different. So looking at this, I would like you to read paragraph 20 to 22 on your own, and when you are done, I want you to think about what is the main idea of what you just read. And if you're not sure, you can wait. Otherwise, you can jot an idea. While you are reading, I'd like you to highlight some important things that the school does to ensure that the students are learning. So go ahead and pause the video and read and highlight. Okay, welcome back. Maybe you saw me highlighting a few things. These are the most important parts of the section that we read, and if we were to take a look at those and review them, it mentions the language that they speak should not be separated. You should teach them together. And if we look down here, this is super important that New York City International High School students graduated a higher percentage than EL students at other schools that are maybe just speaking English. So as far as the main idea, it's probably something to this effect, that it is important to learn in the native language while learning English. All right, let's turn to the next page, 239. And we're going to look at our notice and note up here, which is questioning stance. So you should read the informational text. You take a questioning stance, which means you don't automatically believe everything the author says. So we're going to take a look at this bar graph first, and we're going to answer this question. What challenged or changed or confirmed what you already knew about graduation rates, in particular in EL students? So looking at this chart, spend some time taking a look in your book, and how did your original thoughts maybe change? So if I'm looking at it, EL students in New York schools graduate at 31%. If they attend the international school, 74% of them graduate. All New York City schools graduate at a rate of 72.6. So I was surprised that the EL students had such a difference in graduation rates. I would have thought the rates would have been the same no matter what school. So you can write whatever you thought or whatever change you thought. I also was actually surprised that the international students' grad rate was higher than those of all New York students. So maybe since we're running out of room, I could write that here. So in reference to what was read previously on the other page, that it's important for them. One thing that's the big difference at the international school is they allow them to kind of learn through their own language as they're learning English. They don't shut it down completely. So they say we want students to use all the tools that they have. That's part of education. Should teach you how to use every tool and source at your disposal, left said. Think of a carpenter trying to bang in a nail. He adds, you wouldn't tell a carpenter to build something and take the hammer and say, okay, do the job without your most important tool. So the whole idea of telling a student don't use your language or that's not important, it's how they think. It's often part of how they express their emotion. So it's an integral part of who they are as a person. You should always try to capitalize on all the aspects of who you are. And capitalize was one of the vocabulary words on the last previous page. If you just kind of sneak back and take a look on page 238, it's to kind of use it to your advantage. So, you know, they really should take advantage of the language. You know, if you didn't really know a foreign language, how would you understand, you know, what you're reading? But if you read in your native language, you'd be able to understand that. So that's kind of a switch than what some of the public schools are doing now. So for some students, their native language is their identity. I would say most. It's a big part of it. So take Lapsan, for example. His family left Tibet because they weren't allowed to live freely under the Chinese rule before coming to the U.S., he said. We had to immigrate to Nepal the way we want. In America, Lab Singh and his family are free to speak their language, which is important here, where before they weren't able to, and honor their culture in a variety of ways. Right now I live in Queens, so I think of myself as an American New Yorker, says Lab Singh, who embraces his Tibetan identity at the same time. We still practice celebrations like the Tibetan New Year, he says. Nurari from Guinea honors cultures by attending West African weddings in the city. She also celebrates religions such as Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan, when Muslims fast for a month. It is important to honor her culture here, she says, partly because of unrest in her country has made her nervous about returning. So unrest is unstable government. It's very difficult, so it's probably safer for them to leave. I want to look here because I did miss this. It says, see the word embrace, and sometimes embrace can have multiple meanings. One meaning that you're probably most familiar with is to like embrace someone or hold someone, but it can have other meanings. So we're going to look over here and we're going to find the word embrace. And we're going to reread this sentence and we're going to answer this question. So what does the word embrace in paragraph 24 convey about Lab Singh's feelings towards his Tibetan identity? So go ahead and reread this and think about this question and answer that question. If you need to pause the video, you can. Okay, so to check your answer, it means he is connected to his Tibetan culture. You could even say identity as well. So having that connection is you embrace something you have. So you're not physically embracing something, but you have that connection. All right, I'm going to have you read 25 through, let's have you read through 27, all this on your own. And I want you to highlight the names of the people and what kind of keeps them connected to their home country. So what is their name, what is their country, and I'll just write this down. You don't necessarily need to write this down. And then what is the food? Okay, so go ahead and read that, and you can highlight it, and then you can mark it down as well, and I'm going to do that at the same time you are doing it. All right, if you are not ready, you can pause, but we added what some of the traditional foods are, and we're going to move on and continue with Lobsang's story. So he says, I made a lot of friends from different countries, Yemen, Pakistan. I have African friends. Lobsang says, it's kind of like a family with different races. When he was a student at the school, he says some of his friends from the neighborhood who grew up here would laugh about the fact that he went to an international high school. They called it immigrant high school, he says, but they don't know how helpful the school is. If you're from a school with people from different countries, they share the same problems. This is kind of important. And it gives you more information and understands the world better. If everyone is from the same country and goes to the same school, then they don't have a lot of stories to share. They have a lot of interesting stories. I think this is super important, this last statement. So I would say the theme or the message of this part is to stay connected. To your culture as you learn a new one. You know, there's so many things. I'm just going to mention, you don't need to necessarily write all these down, but also like share your story. Tell people who you are. And another one that could be included would be stay true to yourself and who you are. Alrighty guys, that is it. So you need to please look up at the board so you know the other things that you need to do for the end of the class. We have the assessment practice and analyze the text. Page numbers and question numbers are on the board, and make sure you show those to me when you are done. Thanks.